On the Wake Up Radio presents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, friends, family, enemies, and I forgot who the fourth set of people are, but so be it. I'm your host, DC Radical One. And tonight by the way, this is The Center, and I am your host, DC Radical One. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. Now, I did not actually load up the music that I wanted. So, some of y'all saying y'all surprised, although Tuesday has become more of a regular thing than Sunday at this point. Thank you, brother. So y'all like the new intro? That's a question. Y'all let me know. Y'all like the new intro? It was sparked by necessity more so than creativity. The necessity sparked the creativity. And let me greet everybody before I get started. I'm not sure how many people will come through tonight. Whether you got ripped off, can you alert some people? Let them know we're on. We got Sister Najee, BB48, BB48 Straight Black Rider, Sister Fonessa, and BB48 to Brother You Got Ripped Off. And so everybody's in the chat. Sorry for the late notice, because I didn't let people know till probably after 7 o'clock. I was it took a while for this to come together. BB48 to Salahuddin Abdul Aziz. Good to see you, family. As I wait for a few people to come in. Oh yeah, I forgot. Nasiru Kemet, greetings to you. This Saturday, 3 o'clock, Brother Genie will be in Baltimore at Terra Cafe, which I believe is 101 East 25th Street, Baltimore, Maryland. I think it's 21218. Of course, Terra Cafe is a Black-owned restaurant establishment, and they're one of the few venues willing to have Brother Genie come out. So that Saturday event, or this Saturday event, is free. So if you're in the Baltimore area, you can check it out. You say the notice caught you off guard. Yeah, I started sending it out earlier, but I was editing and I was creating the new 5-minute countdown, which looks simple but isn't always the case. Finding music that's appropriate was extremely difficult. I'll talk to you, brother. You got ripped off about that. Well, that was a necessity. So, yeah. Well, I thought it came together good. Actually, nobody said, y'all didn't actually tell me whether y'all liked it or not. But that's what we'll be going with for the near future. When you say, Sister Nada, you say it's more befitting of the times. Yeah. That's one way. I didn't look at it that way. As I was putting it together, it just looked, fly, for lack of a better word. To try some other stuff, it wasn't as interesting. But yeah, Brother Genie is going to be continuing his African Survival in 21st Century tour. And after, and of course, this will be right before the election. This Saturday is 3 days before the election. And then after that, the next one will be, if I'm not mistaken, in December, I believe December 7th in New York City. So I'll put that information up on my Instagram, and I already put it up for Saturday on the community tab here on YouTube. So tonight, what I really want to talk about, I didn't want to talk about, but decided to talk about. I know I told y'all, I'm pretty sure I told y'all I was finished talking about the election. So apparently I lied. I don't like to lie. You know what I'm saying? But apparently that's what's taking place. So really what this started off as the election, because this is what I was going to do. Kamala Harris is actually speaking. As I'm speaking, she should be speaking. Greetings to Lord Bell. So as I'm speaking, she should be speaking. I started to go down there because, it's, I'm in the city, it's in the city. And I was going to try to get some footage and, talk to people and stuff like that. And then I decided I don't want to do that. You know what I was like? I don't want to do that. As far as I know, from what I saw, the event was outside. It's cold. It's dark. It's outside. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like to listen to Kamala Harris speak. You know what I'm saying? And somebody will say, well, would you go to a Trump rally if it was here? To be honest, probably not. Because a lot of people that support Trump aren't particularly fond of black people. And I'm not the type of person that's going to go somewhere where I'm not liked. You know what I'm saying? Now that you can take that as however you like in regards to Mr. Trump, but I'm just saying his constituency, a good percentage of his constituency have not been known to be overly fond of black people. This is just the facts, right? How much that affects his policy? Think about Trump. You can negotiate with him. BB4ODA to Sister Simone. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't negotiate with him and all he have in his ear is those folks, good luck. You know what I'm saying? That's all I can say to that. So that's how that goes. So yeah, I didn't start to, because if I started to, I would have walked out the door and headed in that direction. I thought about going to the Kamala Harris thing. Because it's just one of the things I kind of wanted to do is just like do some guerrilla filming around the city, around certain events. But that's just not going to happen. Plus, I know the security is going to be tight. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people out there. I don't really know. And whatever she has to say, I really don't want to hear. So I'm here with you all live now. So let's get into it. And brother, you got ripped off. Remind me in approximately an hour to remind people about this Saturday's event. By the way, for those who haven't seen, we do have memberships to the channel now. The lowest levels, I think $3.99 a month. I think it's $3.99, $9.99, and $24.99. $24.99 will get you a lecture of the month. So a lecture either from myself or Brother Cheney that isn't public available, that I usually is one that I filmed. Actually, all of them are ones that I filmed. $9.99, you'll get clips. So you'll get some clips from some of that stuff, clips from other events and whatnot, along with some other things. So that's available now. And you just check out the page and you'll see that information. Greetings to ISP. All right, so let's get started. Now, there's a couple of things going on. And a couple of things I'm talking about. Number one thing that they are saying is the election results will not be in the same night. Now, look, I'm not going to quote myself. I'm going to blame someone else. I'm going to say what's his name? Glenn Greenwald. BB tuned me to Brother Socko. Let's say what Glenn Greenwald said. Glenn Greenwald, who was a reporter, now he's a journalist, and I think he came out against the Iraq War or something. Anyway, he used to be like a journalist that was respected and made money. He irritated someone and decided to leave the country, and then came back. I think he came back. Not a particular fan of him per se, but he does have information and stuff and talks to people and so forth, so on. So he said that he doesn't understand why America cannot do an election in one night, because he lived in Brazil. And he said that one of the things Brazil is known for is government inefficiency. and being just being limited in its capacity to do things in a timely manner and well. And he says, but of all the things that they don't do well, the one thing they have America beat in is they have elections and they know the results, either in the same day or overnight. And so when he says that, and Brazil has the approximate same, the population size is approximately the same, and they have mandatory voting, so they're counting more votes. All I can say is that the more time it takes to count the vote, the more time you have to decide who the winner is, and not by counting the vote. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that any shenanigans are going on right now, although they are. But there's going to be some type of shenanigans going on this next week. Yep, sister Vanessa, I'm gonna get to that. Yeah, I saw that. So they're starting early with the shenanigans. So I got a lot of articles and stuff to go through. We're also, in addition to the presidential election, we're going to talk about the people that affect Congress the most. And unfortunately, no matter how many times you vote, it is not you or I. So let us get started with, what are we getting started with? Before I can even get started, they're like, hey, do you want I haven't even gotten to it. They're like, hey, man, give us your email. So I guess I'll start with this article just to get it out the way, because it says the 2024 election violence is already here. This is not where I wanted to start, but hey, this is where we are. Excuse-moi, pardon, so I can actually get to the article. This is by, what is it? Oh, U.S. News and World Report. It says, are ballot box fires isolated one-offs or signs of a chaotic season to come? Check this out. It says, in this image made from a video provided by KGW8, authorities investigate smoke pouring out of a ballot box on Monday in Vancouver, Washington. Now, let me stop right here. I'm going to admit something. I had no idea there was such a thing as a Vancouver, Washington. So I knew there's a Vancouver, Canada, but I never knew there's a Vancouver, Washington. So I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea where that is. Anyway, after months of warnings from officials at the federal, state, and local levels about a heightened threat environment blanketing this election year, more political violence arrived on Monday in the form of incendiary attacks on ballot drop boxes in Washington and Oregon. Already, the topsy-turvy campaign has seen former President Donald Trump survive what authorities are investigating as two separate assassination attempts, one that left him bleeding from his ear. The big question now is, in the final stretch to November 5th, Are these isolated incidents unlikely to be reproduced elsewhere, or is this just the start of a season of violence linked to the vote? Something the country has had a heightened reason to fear since the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. They love to bring up that January 6th. So, oops, my bad. Let me get back to that. All right. Says the FBI Seattle's field office. The FBI Seattle field office says in a statement that the agency is coordinating with federal, state, and local partners to actively investigate the two incidents in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Here's what I find interesting. I find it interesting. Okay, the brother says it's a suburb of Portland next to the Portland airport. All right, thank you, brother. Here's what I find interesting. As long as I can remember, like maybe, I can't remember, but Reagan had such a landslide that I'm assuming that Reagan, and he was from the West Coast, so I'm assuming that Reagan won Oregon and Washington. So as long as I can remember, like literally, even before I can't remember, those areas have been Democratic. And there hasn't been any threat of anyone, any Republican winning those. And I don't know how long. Like maybe I don't. Yeah, because I'm sure Clinton won them. And Bush's first one was close, and the second one he wasn't popular. So yeah, so I could. It had to be since Reagan, or maybe Bush won. Since any Republican has won, at least presidential election. I'm just going to throw that out there. Now somebody can research it and tell me I'm wrong later. So I just find it interesting that why this area. I almost feel like it's a test run for something. Like to me, it's a random, isolated area that we know pretty much how they're going to vote, at least from the presidential level. So why are people attacking ballot boxes there? Like it wouldn't even make sense. It wouldn't even make sense for someone who is a conservative or Republican or whatever. So that's why it makes me think it's something beyond just random, quote unquote political violence. It's something else going on. I feel like this is a test just to see how people will react. Anyway, authorities reportedly said incendiary devices were placed at the two ballot box droppers, one in Portland and one in the nearby city of Vancouver, Washington. Police have described the incidents as linked to each other and to another incident on October 8th, where a similar device was placed near a different Vancouver ballot drop box. So let me say this. I know it's actually in the Constitution that people vote on Tuesday. I know it would take a constitutional amendment to change that, but seriously, and I know November is football season or whatever, but why don't we vote on the weekend? Well, DC, you just said it's a constitutional amendment. I know, but there's 350 million people approximately in America, and when the economy is working right, the 200 million or so that are eligible to vote, like 150 million of them should be at work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe 125, but still. Why don't we vote on Saturday and Sunday? You vote on Saturday and Sunday, and then you count them up Sunday night, and you announce it Monday morning. I mean, it's 21st century, right? Like, why not just do things better? Like, people aren't farming and don't have to take their make sure that crop is secure, and take their horse and buggy to town to vote anymore. Right? Because I remember reading somewhere that had something to do with that. But it's 21st century. Like, we can do this better. I don't know why nobody even mentions this, but there's got to be a better way. But anyway, let me get back to it. It says now hundreds of ballots were reportedly destroyed in Monday's Washington incident. In Arizona, meanwhile, a man who damaged or destroyed as many as 20 ballots in Phoenix when he started a fire in a postal service mailbox, reportedly told police that he did not set the blaze because of political considerations. Why are you setting mailbox on fire? And actually, setting mailbox on fire is a federal crime. Like, destroying mail is a federal crime, if I'm not mistaken. So you extra stupid. If you didn't do it for political reasons, you just did it because you stupid. Like, what is happening here? Anyway, it says, I strongly denounce any acts of terror that aim to disrupt lawful and fair elections. Washington Secretary of State Steve Hobbs said in a statement, despite this incident, I have complete confidence in our county elections officials' ability to keep Washington's elections safe and secure for all voters. Well, one thing I know after reading this, the voting that I'm going to do, and I'm not sure what I am going to do. It won't be done it won't be mailed in. It'll be done in person, unless someone physically stops me. And no, I'm not issuing a challenge. You know what I'm saying? I want to inspire people. Like, he said he gonna vote no matter what. I'm gonna see about that. Nah, you ain't gotta do all that, bro. It's not that serious. I'm one person. Anyway, it says, why ballot drop boxes, a nonprofit governmental transparency group called Property of the People, obtains intelligence briefs from the Department of Homeland Security from September, including one detailing online chatter about sabotaging ballot drop boxes. Election infrastructure remains an attractive target for some domestic violent extremists and other threat actors with election-related grievances who seek to disrupt the democratic process and election operations. Some threat actors may perceive ballot drop boxes as soft targets because they are more accessible. Some of the online conversations have included suggestions from using road flares, fireworks, petroleum fuel, linseed oil, and white phosphorus, cement or expanding foam, bleach, or other chemicals, and farm machinery to damage ballots and boxes. Let me stop right there. Let me ask y'all a question. What do y'all think the shirt? I didn't even see the shirt. What did the shirt have say? I didn't even see the shirt. That's too good. Let me ask you, what do y'all think the motivation is for this? Because I've seen it. I saw the reports and everything. But what do y'all think the motivation is? Because why would random people start doing stuff like this? Like seriously. Anyway, it says granted a couple or a few hundred ballots doesn't sound like a lot, but the perception that ballot drop boxes are targets for attacks could deter some voters from using them at scale that could potentially tip a local or house election. Vancouver is the biggest city in Washington's 3rd congressional district, which is expected to feature one of the county's closest House races. It pits Democratic Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez against Republican challenger Joe Kemp. In 2022, Gluesenkamp Perez beat Kent by 2,700 votes. Anyway, Kent told supporters on the Hellscape the Hellscape, formerly known as Twitter. Who wrote this? Not to be deterred by a cowardly act of terrorism. There's absolutely zero place in our democracy for political violence or interference against our fellow citizens, election workers, or voting infrastructure. Local and federal law enforcement have my full support in working to keep our democracy, our democratic process, safe and secure. Let's see. She also asked for an overnight law enforcement presence at all ballot boxes in Clark County through Election Day. The county reported as having temporary workers monitor the boxes at all times. Again, these could be isolated incidences not to be replicated, or they could be spark of something else. As much as I would like this to not be a thing, I got a feeling this is going to be a thing. I got a feeling this is going to be a thing. All right, so let's get rid of that. So as we see, sorry, popping off. Now it says, all right, it's New York Post trying to ask me, man, everybody wants me to sign up for something. Like, what is happening right now? It says, no, I don't care about the daily horoscope. Here's why these states will take the longest to count the 2024 presidential election. Now, there's another thing. We got election violence, if you will, and we got delays. So I mean, we're just moving in the wrong direction already. You know, this thing is we haven't even got, well, we have got started because people are voting, but it's all going up in a good foot. You looked up, who you look up? The person running in Washington, brother. Hey man, listen. As we move on, we're gonna see that at certain points, a lot of people's policies are the same because, you know, people paid for them to be the same. It says election day is set to turn into election week. Actually, it is election week, if you will. I guess it's pre-election week. But millions of voters around the country. In 2020, the last polls closed on Tuesday, November 3rd. But it took 4 days until Saturday, November 7th, for President Biden to be the projected winner. But think about that. Due to delays in ballot tabulation leading to unsubstantiated claims of fraud. Okay, if you say so. You know, so that, you know, and but from Mr. Trump and his allies. Now, let's see. Times for polls closing to AP calling the state's presidential race in 2020. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So approximately 1/3 called their elections within 1 day last time. And it looks like about 25 or so. So in one half had their election called within an hour, which I find interesting. Okay. So that would be, you know, that would take you up over 80%. And then you had 3 that were more than 5 days and another one that was 5 days. So unfortunately, if Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina are the ones where we have to wait 5 days, those are actually some of the states that are actually going to decide the election, which means we won't know the actual projected winner within a week. That's basically what they're saying, if things are the same. Anyway, this time around, even without the wrinkle of a global pandemic, Republicans and Democrats will still be waiting a while for several states to determine their results. While some of these states' slowness won't be crucial to the outcome of the presidential race, they could delay calls in key down ballot states, as well as battle for Congress. I'm trying to figure out why they just randomly showing, what's her name? Wayne Wade's wife. Let's see. Oops. I bet. This, for whatever reason, this random Kamala picture. Says here the slowest slow posts amongst the 50 states. Alaska polls close 12 a.m. Wednesday in most of the state, 1 a.m. Wednesday in parts of the Aleutian Islands. Despite having the third smallest population of any state in the Union, the last frontier is notorious for being one of the last to get its ballots counted, thanks to its peculiar election rules and its scattered, mostly rural population. I was getting ready to say, everybody lives out in the wilderness, so that's not a shock. It says state law requires early votes turned in at regional elections offices only before the Thursday prior to election day, so they can be counted on election night. However, absentee ballots and early votes cast after that time frame must be tallied up by 7 days after the poll, according to the Alaska Division of Elections, as commercials just play randomly in the background. That means the House race between the Democratic incumbent Mary Peltola and Republican challenger Nick Vujicic III could be amongst the last call. Arizona. All right, why? Arizona permits election officials to begin processing mail-in ballots as early as voting begins, but crucially requires officials to wait until the polls close to count them. Okay. Can y'all tell me why that makes sense? Anyone? So you can process them, but you don't actually start counting them. Is that so you make sure that everything's counted the same? Like, I don't understand. Anyway, whatever. So the bulk of the ballots will be cast in Maricopa County, which includes Phoenix, and contains about 60% of Arizona's population. There's also the potential for litigation that could cause further delays declaring a result, not just in the presidential race, but in the first congressional district, currently held by Republican David Schweikert, and declared a toss-up by the Cook Political Report. Biden won Arizona over Trump by 0.3% 4 years ago. So I didn't know that. So Biden can Biden. So there's a possibility of Trump reversing some of these things that he just barely lost. I really forgot how close this race was. So when people was like, there's definitely no fraud, I'm like, how can you say that in a race so close that literally 5,000 votes flipped can change the whole election? I mean, you know, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying that if the voting is within the polling is within the, what they call it, within the margins of the room for error, whatever they call it, I forgot what they call it, and the actual voting is also within that area, how can you really just say? How can you say that nothing has happened or will happen or can happen? I mean, I know you got to say it so people have confidence in the system, but you know, saying it with your chest, I don't know about that part. Won't be me. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say that there's no room for election fraud. I ain't gonna tell that lie, because when I looked at the old voting machines in 2016, boy, that was eye-opening. So yeah, I'm just, you know, hopefully everything's on the up and up, or I mean, goodness, it's gonna be ugly if it ain't. Anyway, oh wait a minute, California, my bad. Yeah, what did they say about California? Why is this just random picture of Tim Walz when we talk about Arizona? He's from Minnesota. Anyway, the nation's most populous state. No, California is still the nation's most populous state. I don't know why I thought it was Texas. Anyway, has a notorious history of taking days and even weeks to finish off the rudimentary task of counting ballots. Really? This is largely due to the fact that most Californians vote by mail. Why? During the 2020 cycle, 72% of the votes were from mail-in ballots. Okay, well, I guess we can expect more confusion there and attacks on ballot boxes. During the 2024 primary, that figure rose to 89%, according to California Secretary of State. I'm just laughing because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, there's a reason why no Republican ever wins California. Anyway, the Golden State requires county officials to undergo an extensive signature verification process and allows precincts 30 days to count ballots, a much longer time frame than the 7 days given by most other states. Oh man, so yeah, I guess it's kind of good in a way that Kamala's almost guaranteed to win. And who picked this picture? Come on, man, what in the world? If I'm Donald Trump, I would be calling him like, hey man, got me out here looking crazy. Like he got too much tanner on. He's kissing air. I don't know what's going on with that picture. That thing is wild. Anyway, Nevada, the Silver State, is the third to last state to be called for Biden. Wait, Biden won Nevada last time? And expect things to be a little quicker. Nevada also allows mail-in ballots to be counted up to 4 days after the election, provided they are postmarked before the election. Now, why would you do that? Earlier this year, Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar informed officials they can begin tallying up in-person early votes as ballots come in on election day, rather than waiting until the polls close, meaning we should have a clear picture of the state race as Tuesday turns into Wednesday. However, with polls showing a tight race between Harris and Trump, who hopes to be the first Republican since Mr. Bush and 2004 to take Nevada, it's likely to be a long wait. There's no shenanigans. I think Mr. Trump can take that state, but we shall see. North Carolina, polls closed at 7:30. In 2020, North Carolina was not called for Trump until 10 days after the election. Won North Carolina last time? He won North Carolina and still lost the election. All right. Anyway, while it may not take that long to pick a winner this time, Tar Heel State has a new policy that will make ballot processing even slower. Oh my goodness. Unlike 4 years ago, officials are no longer allowed to count early votes until after the polls close due to a state law put in effect. Oh yeah. It's expect some shenanigans with North Carolina. Goodness, how many more states we got? Let's see. Who are these random people? Just random black folk. Wisconsin. Let's see. Ballots can't be counted until election day. Battered states appears to be one of the few where early and absentee voting has not dropped off. Yeah, okay. So Wisconsin, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. Now, what's going on with Pennsylvania? 4 years ago, most media outlets called the Keystone State for Biden on November 7th. This time around, officials will be hoping for the outcome akin to 2016 when Trump was projected to win. Okay. Wait a minute, November 7th? What, 4 days it? And Georgia. Oh, that's why because Georgia, I don't even want to read it. Georgia's going to have shenanigans. All right. So we're done with that. So as we see from perusing this article, it's going to be a long week and not a long night. So now y'all tell me, do y'all want, if I can, actually I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but if I can, do y'all want an election night live stream, or y'all want to just wait till it's called, or y'all don't even care because you're tired of election stuff? But really, you got ripped off said no. I mean, it's over y'all. Y'all let me know in the chat. We already got 1-0. So right now we're 1-0 on the no part. So done with that article. This is NBC4, Washington, DC bracing for possible riots and civil unrest. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw this, I'm like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. Do I need to leave? the area, riots. And what is this? Oh, and this is a video showing preparation related to the election and inauguration. Oh yeah, that's right. The fencing and all that stuff. Yeah, everything should be. But nah, with all these people, this must be for Kamala's thing. Anyway, yeah, you're in DC, man. Inauguration time, security. And I can tell you from experience, security is going to be tight. You know. Now, Sister Finesse is talking about, yeah, let's have a watch party. Now we at 1-to-1. Let's see. Sorry, I'm so busy laughing at y'all in the chat, I can't even read the article. Anyway, where we at? Says DC officials shared new details Tuesday on security preparations related to election and inauguration. DC Assistant City Administrator Chris Rodriguez briefed the DC Council on security preparations for Election Day through January 6th and the inauguration day. Now, isn't inauguration day the 20th, 19th, the 20th? Somebody help me out. Somebody look that up. Because I'm trying to figure out why I get. Do y'all think that people won't actually do something to commemorate January 6th in DC? Yeah, I don't know about that part. There's a lot of them people got locked up for real. So, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, security officials are preparing for historic crowds in DC on Inauguration Day, no matter what candidate wins. Yeah, I'm gonna be out the way that day. That's gonna be crazy. Yeah, I'm good. I don't need no parts of that action if I can help it. Metropolitan Police Department officials are ready for the coming months, Chief of Police Pamela Smith said. Yeah, I forgot she's the Chief of Police now. Oops, and went all past that. My bad. Want to assure you that the Metropolitan Police Department, affectionately or not so affectionately known as MPD, and the DC government agencies continue to prepare for these events. The Metropolitan Police Department supports individuals peacefully exercising First Amendment rights. I want to be very clear, we will not tolerate any violence of any kind. We will not tolerate any riots. We will not tolerate destruction of property. We will not tolerate unlawful behavior. Offenders will be arrested and will be held accountable. So, here's what I take from that. I'm just be honest. I fully expect Antifa, regardless of who wins, to do some shenanigans and then it be blamed on someone else. Generally, y'all know who someone, because we in DC, y'all generally know who someone else is. Generally, black people get blamed for this stuff. Like, we've seen that before. I mean, this Antifa group of people will run around and, first of all, construction equipment will just be mysteriously left open where the protests are going to be just there. Like, oh, look, here's some random bricks and boards. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, January 20th. Thank you, brother. And then you see random people who have their face all covered up, destroying property while people were protesting peacefully. So we've seen that play before. So I don't expect anything different. So I'm just saying, if you plan to be out on Inauguration Day or protesting or celebrating or whatever, just keep your head on the swivel, that and be alert to shenanigans from people who want to cause destruction and hide their hand. Now, for those of y'all who aren't here, I don't know. I don't know how those things happen outside of the DC area, but this is a political city and people do celebrate or not celebrate. Kind of hard. So I had no choice but to be up all night and to be around people last time. And I remember seeing people celebrating, and I remember them calling a lot of states for Mr. Trump and him to be leading, and basically Biden on the verge of conceding. And I remember not paying attention because I had other stuff to do, even though I was still awake. Then, next thing I know, Biden won, and I'm like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like that. I vividly remember that. I remember going home and getting some sleep and waking up, and everything that I was sure was happening wasn't happening. So I don't want to, and to this day. So that's why when they say, that's why when Trump and them argue and say something happened, it appeared like something happened to me. You know what I'm saying? One person was winning, I went to sleep, the other person won. So to me, their argument makes sense. That's all. I can't prove anything. I'm just saying it was mighty weird. That's all I'm saying. And I was up all night. You know what I'm saying? I ain't say I went to bed at midnight. And I remember they were mostly, I think all of them were European, all the ones I saw. But people were coming out of bars, celebrating and cheering. I remember them cheering when certain states won, and I was like, oh, he's gonna win this. And then I started thinking, I'm like, oh, these people about to act a fool if he wins. So then it started like, okay, now I have to worry about my personal safety out here. You know what I'm saying? So I was just kind of glad they went home inebriated and happy. It didn't flip while they were still awake, because those people left, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Man, please. They've been drinking too. Oh my good man. That would have been a nightmare. So the more I think about it, it's just like, and that was mild, and they expected it to be. Anyway, so I'm gonna bypass this article because the last one pretty much covered this. About who gonna take the longest. So what I wanted to talk about, as we're talking about elections, because let me make sure, because if I didn't bring this article up, I'm gonna be very irritated. Where is it? Did I accidentally delete the? Okay, here we go. This is the next one I want to look at. Hey man, can y'all? Why y'all? How do I? Here's what. So y'all just not gonna let me take this off the screen. Here is something I did want to look at that I haven't talked about and that people don't generally talk about. And I don't know why Chuck Norris is up here. It's taking up space. How many people are aware of your congressional and your Senate races? 7 minutes. All right. Thanks, brother. Right. Are y'all up on that? And I'm not saying that you're going to vote, but I'm just saying if you're going to vote, and even if you're not going to vote, it's still good to see who these people are. How many, y'all let me know if y'all up on that and y'all familiar with those people. Now, I've lived in different parts of the DMV, and we generally, I guess it depends on where you live, but we've had a lot of Black candidates, depending on where you live. And some have been good and some have been not so good. And what's weird is some of them have been good, and then as they get older, like the older they get, the worse they get. Like, I don't know if that's like for everybody, like politicians in general, but the one thing I can say, man, a lot of Black representatives and senators, the older they get, the more useless they become. They just there just getting free money because they're not doing anything for their constituency. So, really, I want to bring this up because I think the Senate and the House are relatively close. And here's what we never talk about, or at least rarely. People talk about, the presidential race, the president, blah, 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 right? If Trump wins, he's going to outlaw being black. You know what I'm saying? It's like people do, and people talk about the 2025 thing, 2025 agenda. But here's what people don't understand. Most of the 2025 agenda is a legislative agenda. It's not an executive agenda. Somebody got to pass through the House and Senate. Most of them, right? Like there's some things you can do by executive order, but most of that stuff has to be passed in the House and Senate. So if you do not want that stuff to be passed, the thing to do is, I'll put it like this, from what I've seen, I would split my vote. Like voting, to me, this is personal. This is my personal opinion. Voting strictly along party lines for black people in America doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm not telling you which way to split your vote. Sometimes splitting your vote could be voting third party presidential and then your local person, one or the other of the major parties. Or splitting your vote, you can split your vote amongst, depending on who's running where you are, you can split your vote amongst a bunch of third party candidates, right? Like I talked to some people and they're actually gonna vote major for the president and then vote for a third party person for their local, which I found that interesting. That's what, something is an option, but you're like, I don't know anybody to say that. But the reason I want to bring that up is because I remember when everybody talking about 2025 agenda thing, and then I was like, not one person that brought it up has talked about literally the way to stop that is to simply stop the Republicans from having the majority in both houses. If you're just staunchly opposed to that whole thing, which I still ain't met nobody that read the whole thing. I'm being completely honest. I haven't. I don't have the time. You know what I'm saying? So if people wanted to pay me to read it and break it down and go through it all, 400 pages or whatever it was, I would, but nobody's going to do that. So therefore, I didn't do it. But I just find it interesting that nobody talks about these races. So just going to look at it. As of this moment, the Republicans hold the Senate 49 to 47 with four independents. Now, generally speaking, the independents that I remember from before, 3 of them voted Democrat. So you basically tied in the Senate. And then in the House, the Republicans have this before the election, currently have an 8-seat lead in the House. Which is interesting because I remember hearing more about the Republicans being in chaos than them actually having both seats of the House and stopping Mr. Biden from enacting anything. So as I'm reading it, I didn't find that interesting. So here's the thing. This is my experience in my lifetime. As weird as what I'm about to say is going to sound, and this last 4 years hasn't been the case, but before that, generally speaking, like especially in the 80s and 90s, when you had a split as far as the presidential party and who held Congress being different, more things got done in those instances than in times when a person had everything in one party. That doesn't make any sense. But for example, I think literally for almost the first half of my life or whatever, well, not quite, but definitely the first 10-12 years of my life, and probably 40-50 years before that, the Democrats had the House. Like that was just a thing. It had been a thing since like the 30s or something, since since Roosevelt or whatever. That was just a thing. Yet, good or bad, right, wrong, and indifferent, Reagan was able to get a lot of stuff done with, at that time, Tip O'Neill, big old fat dude. They were politically different, but they got stuff done. Like right now, Congress doesn't seem to be able to do anything, including passing a budget. So, to me, it's like, all right, well, if somebody has both houses and they can't get anything done, then split it up. Right? Split it up, or at least split it up from the president and make people do that. Because why not? Right? So for me, that's an idea. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that. I don't know if anybody else has said it, but it has worked better in the times that I've been around than in other times where you have everybody allegedly the same party and still can't get down the common, right? But I just find this interesting because this shows how close and how important really these Senate races are and these House races. And I haven't really heard anybody talk about everything has been about the presidential race. So right here, this is the map of the Senate seats that are up for grabs. If I can actually get this thing done. If I can get Chuck Norris out the way. Is Chuck Norris in the way? Is that why I can't see them? If I can get Chuck Norris out the way. Not a personal Chuck, but get out the way. All right. So what is this? It said Republican held the seat a Republican held seat is up for election. So that's Texas, Florida, Colorado, Nebraska, Missouri. What is that? North Dakota and Indiana. An independent held seat is in, I believe that's Arizona. West Virginia. West Virginia is an independent? No. And Maine. And I'm not sure if that's Vermont or whatever that is. Whatever. And then the Democratic seats are up in Hawaii, California, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York. Man, a lot. There's a lot. If you're a Democrat, there's a lot of Democratic seats up. I didn't even name all of them, but that's a lot. So, yeah, it appears that the Democrats have more Senate seats up than the Republicans. So, the Senate could very well, at least it appears, go by way of to the Republicans. And here is a listing of the seats that are open and seats where people are trying to come back. Now, one thing I saw as I look for people that I recognize and people that I don't like, don't particularly like Ben Cardin, but whatever. Looks like he's going to be gone. He's said it's an open seat. And Tim Kaine, I saw he's running. Somebody I really don't like, Ted Cruz. He is Republican from Texas. It's a chance that he'll lose. I'm not gonna lie. You know, if so, that'll be good. I'm just tired of Ted Cruz. Just be gone. But somebody that I don't see on here, and maybe he's not a senator in the House. What is that old dude's name that I cannot? What is that old dude's name, man? I mean, he's just an old. I think he's from Mississippi or something. Just an old redneck dude. Mitch McConnell. Like, is anybody running against him? Where is he from? Like, can we get somebody to beat him? Like, this dude is like 199 years old. Like, he's been around since slavery time, and he act like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's some politician. Kentucky. Come on, man. If I had known, man, I would have, like, I don't even know who he running against. I would have campaigned. I would went to Kentucky and say, hey, does anybody want to run against this guy? It's just some politicians, man, that just, it was like Nancy Pelosi got to that point where it's just like, please go away. I'm not even in California. I'm like, please go away. Her, Mitch McConnell, like these people that's like 100 years old and been in office since. Some of these people, I swear they've been in office since I was a teenager. Like, they was in office when the Million Man March. Like, come on, like, go away. Find something else to do. Just thinking about just irritates me. We don't have any better people in Kentucky than Mitch McConnell. Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, I know it's Kentucky, but still, ain't Louisville in Kentucky? So ain't nobody in Louisville. Nobody. Louisville's in Kentucky, right? That's where Muhammad Ali is from. So the state where Muhammad Ali is from can't produce any politician to beat Mitch McConnell. Like, seriously? No, nobody. Come on, man. Like, some of these old geezers, man. Respectfully, yeah, people gonna say, hey, man, you practicing ageism. Well, I'm old, but some of these old geezers got to go. They've just been in Congress forever. I mean, you literally wheeling these people out and got to dump them off. You don't even dump them off at the old folks home. Like, some of these people, how old was Dianne Feinstein? Did she die in office? Is she's not still in office, right? Like some of these people, man, like literally, you just wheeling them out of Congress straight to the grave, just straight to the morgue, because that's how long they be there. Yeah. And then you wonder why the country can't make no progress. Need new ideas, man, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, and people that just won't. Some people, they just there so long. They just get corrupted because they just there so long. And corruption is so normal. It's just like, man. Like, hey, would you like to not be corrupt? And you're like, nah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? KW Dawn, she literally retired. She retired next realm while in office. Dianne Feinstein. We got it's a guy in DC. He said he's suffering from Vincent Gray. He said he's suffering from early signs of dementia. And he said he's not going to vote. But he didn't say he was retiring. He didn't say he was resigning. He just said he's not going to be voting. I'm like, what are you talking about? You just told us that you have early stage dementia. But you're not announcing your retirement. What? And this is a city councilman. I actually don't know how old Vincent Gray is, but like, how is it possible that you remove people because they're corrupt, quote unquote? Because all of a sudden, a lot of black people getting the boot because they corrupt. And here in New York, but go and see now, nah, you good, bro. Like, this is crazy, man. Is it me? Am I tripping? Does anyone else see a problem with this? Like, this is America in the 21st century. People literally just passing away in office. And John McCain, he had cancer, but at least he died from a disease. These other people, they're passing away from just, body just give out, just old age. What they call it, natural causes. What you saying? Stop trying to get people thinking. No, I mean, come on, man, this is crazy. I can't be the only one sitting around looking at this like, oh yeah, hold up. All right. So, if you want to see this stuff and you want to see what the Senate races look like, and I'm assuming the House races are underneath this, or maybe on the other side, you can go to ballotpedia.org, and you can check them out there. Now, I'm going to pause here, and since I do have commercials in my thing, if y'all want to put the commercial here, put the commercial here. Now, I'm sure the AI won't actually put the commercial here because that would make too much sense. It's going to come while I'm talking. So, again, this is The Center. I'm your host, DC Radical 1. You can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at dcradical_ONE, on OTWTube at DC Radical 1. You can donate via Cashapp, $DC Radical 1, and you can email me at dc.radical_1@protonmail.com. And if you can't reach me there, because sometimes people say they can't reach me there, you can email me at dc.radical1@gmail.com. I get to it eventually. And if Brother Jirake, who I haven't seen, I sent you a link. If you listen to this later, I sent you a link for your first lecture, and I'll send you this Saturdays. I'll send you that when I film that. So you and Brother Rip, you got ripped off. Y'all be able to get that first. And there's one more thing that the brother will get. So I know he was like, yo, when you gonna send me this stuff? I did send him one, but I haven't got a response for him. I hadn't seen that it was downloaded. So shout out to Brother Jirake. Now, there is something else that I wanted, because we're talking about the election. We're talking about not just the presidential, but we're also talking about the congressional election. And I want to make a transition. Oh, but before I do that, I forgot. You're right, brother. Announcements. Announcement number 1. Brother Genie will be at Terror Cafe as part of his African Survival in 21st Century tour. Saturday, what is that? November 3rd? Saturday, November 3rd, 3 p.m. at Terror Cafe, which is located at 101 East 25th Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21218. This is a free event. November 2nd. Oh, my bad. November 2nd, Saturday, November 2nd at 3 p.m. At Terror Cafe, 101 East 25th Street, 21218. This is a free event, and it will not be live streamed. It'll only be available via either you got to be there or you got to get the footage from myself. I'll be filming it. And there's a lot of things going on in the world. And Brother Genie, we've been in contact lately, and there's a lot of things going on internationally that you probably there's not a better source to really break down and analyze what it means and what's really going on than the brother. So me, him, and some other brothers discuss some of those issues. And I just put like this: it's worth you knowing. That's for that. That's all I say. It's worth you knowing. So, and also tangentially related to that, you can either get this Saturday's video of myself, and I guess I'll extend the $20 price for this month. And I'll let you all know. Like I'll put it on my Instagram and the community page when and how that would be made available. And also, again, if you join the membership at the highest level, you'll automatically be in. That's one of the perks of signing up for that. So now, what I wanted to talk about, the real reason I did the show, the other stuff was, kind of the intro. I wanted to talk about the people who have the most influence on the election. And I know that I talked about the I've talked about we've talked about the electoral college process and how that works and everything previously, right? Bro, you got ripped off. Give me a thumbs up if we did that. But what I want to talk about is a group that is in the news a lot. Well, not the news, but the political media a lot. But our people don't know about too much about. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play a clip from our sister, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, and she will introduce this group and their importance on the election stage. So y'all know how this works. What we do, pause the music. I'm about to pause the wrong music. And we load up the clip.
Every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money. So, for example, it was almost like water torture for me. My parents observed this. I would get a call, and the person on the other end of the phone would say, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And then we would get into the planning. I would get really excited because, of course, you have to have money in order to run a campaign. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the planning, they would say, did you sign the pledge? And then I would say, no, I didn't sign the pledge. And then my fundraiser would go kaput. I made it public. This probably nobody had said anything about it, but I made it public. And then, the excuse was, well, those were just overzealous advocates for Israel. So then the tactic changed. And but this is what is done for 535 members of the United States Congress. 100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives have to now write a paragraph, which basically says the same thing. So it's not a pledge, but it's a paragraph, and you post it, and, there are these forums you have to go to at the synagogues or whatever. And then, if you don't perform appropriately, then you don't get money to run your campaign. The problem is that it requires an awful lot of money to run a campaign. And whether it's a woman's organization, an environmental organization, People can read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record. For the entire existence of the United States Congress now, people will be able to access his experience. And what he wrote was that it was the Garden Club of New Jersey that gave his opponent $5,000. But it wasn't really the Garden Club of New Jersey. It was the activists who were associated with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Well,
that is our dear sister, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, introducing us to the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, right? Now, I know my audience, you're familiar, as Bane said in Batman, those things would be a surprise to the uninitiated, but we are initiated. So we're going to start off with a not completely reliable source. Go to Wikipedia, because we're going to say, all right, what is AIPAC? And it says here, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, is a pro-Israel lobbying group that advocates its policies to the legislature and executive branches of the United States. One of several pro-Israel lobbying organizations in the country. It has been called one of its most powerful lobbying groups. I would make the argument that AIPAC is the most powerful lobbying group. Now it says AIPAC was founded in 1954 by Isaiah L. Keenan, a lobbyist for the Israeli government. Now let's stop right here. What's wrong with that picture? He's a lobbyist. He's lobbying in America for, this is in 1954, for a foreign government, for a nation that's 6 years old at the time, approximately. I mean, that's interesting. Now it says that it was founded partly to counter negative international reaction to Israel's Gibeah massacre of Palestinian villagers at the time. Let's start right here. I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but a lot of groups have started off, and seemingly a lot of groups connected some way to Israel have started off campaigning to either cover up or change people's perception of some type of, in essence, criminal activity. Right? See, I didn't know this until recently that they started off, in essence, trying to cover up a massacre. That's the fact. The foundation of AIPAC is covering up massacres. And they're one of the most powerful lobbying groups in America. So we shouldn't be surprised that even now with Mr. Biden, they're not even covering up the massacre, but they just lobby to get more money to continue the massacre. And no one, well, people do say things, but as we read further along, we'll see what happens when you take that off screen. See what happens when you do say something. And really, you got ripped off. Says not long after Americans gave their lives to save his people. Right. Again, so literally the same what they call the greatest generation. The greatest generation is still here. Some of those people, they were out there at 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, women and men, fighting. So there'd be enough people to even create an Israel, right? Now they've been there 5 minutes, and well, they've been there 5 years, but in the grand scheme of things, 5 minutes, and they're committing massacres. So you would think, having gone through what they went through, they would not be committing massacres, but yeah, they were committing massacres, right? So when people try to say that, October 7th was the start of whatever, however they want to say, or what it was the start of, or what? No. I mean, you had massacres going on in the 50s. Now, were there any massacres by Palestinians against Israelis, or even before Israelis, when it were just Jewish settlements there? I don't know. I would think it would have been something that I heard about. So I'm going to say it's not very likely because I never heard about it. Right? Like certain things tend to get more attention than others. But anyway, let's go back to reading here. It says AIPAC only became a powerful organization during its peak influence. Its peak influence in the 80s. No, the peak influence is right now. Anyway, it says in 2002, AIPAC expressed intent to lobby Congress to authorize use of force in Iraq, which took place. In 2003, the Iraq War was defended at AIPAC events. Now, that's like literally saying that one of the reasons that America went to war in Iraq was because of AIPAC. Because, of course, we've already seen General Clark say that he was confused because he said, well, did they find some connection between Saddam and 9/11? He said, no, but we're going to war in Iraq. And he said, why? Well, apparently AIPAC was the answer. Right? Now, of course, this is Wikipedia, so not a great source, but I'm just saying. So anyway, let's just get to the history. Let's bypass that part. Now it says, journalist and lawyer Isaiah L. Keenan founded the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs as a lobbying division of the American Zionist Council. And they split in 1954. Now, I wonder if that was intentional. Anyway, Keenan, a lobbyist for the Israeli government, had at earlier times worked for the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then let's stop right here. So the person who founded the most powerful lobby in America currently is a former minister or former official in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's the founder of AIPAC. Is there no contradiction here? Am I missing something? Like, this is starting off on the wrong foot. Let us read. Let's see. As a lobbyist, Keenan diverged from AZC's usual public relations efforts by trying to broaden support for Israel among traditionally non-Zionist groups. The founding of the new organization was in part a response to the negative international reaction to the October 1953. So this would have been commemorated this month. This would be what, 71 years ago? Gibeah massacre, in which Israeli troops under Ariel Sharon who went on to be a prime minister of Israel, if I'm not mistaken, a troop under Ariel Sharon, killed at least 69 Palestinian villagers, 2/3 of them women and children. As the Eisenhower administration suspected the AZC of being funded by Israel, it was decided that the lobbying efforts should be separated into separate organizations with separate finances. In 1959, AZCPA was renamed American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. So in 1959, it became AIPAC. Keenan led the organization until his retirement in 1974, when he was succeeded by Morris J. Amate. According to commentator M.J. Rosenberg, Keenan was an old-fashioned liberal who did not seek to win support by donating to campaigns or otherwise influencing the election, but was willing to play with the hand that it dealt. Now, it says by 1970, the Conference of Presidents of major Jewish organizations and AIPAC had assumed overall responsibility for Israel-related lobbying within the Jewish communal landscape. The Conference of Presidents was responsible for speaking to the executive branch, while AIPAC dealt mainly with the legislative branch. Although it worked effectively behind the scenes since its founding in 1953, AIPAC only became a powerful organization in the 15 years after the Yom Kippur War in 1973. By the mid-70s, AIPAC had achieved financial and political clout necessary to sway congressional opinion, according to historian Michael Oren. During this period, AIPAC's budget soared from $300,000 in 1973 to $7 million in the late 80s. Where Keenan had come out of the Zionist movement with early staff pulled from long-term activists amongst the Jewish community, AIPAC had evolved into a prototypical Washington-based lobbying and consulting firm. Leaders and staffers were recruited from legislative staff and lobbyists with direct experience with the federal bureaucracy. Confronted with opposition from both houses of Congress, U.S. President Gerald Ford rescinded his reassessment. George Zinkowski noted a similar mid-70s time frame for the rise of AIPAC. The Jimmy Carter presidency, also coincides with the militant emergence of AIPAC as a major force. Okay, interesting. Now, here's the article that I want to read. There's a very interesting article that I came across that I want to read. Now that we have that basic understanding, we got that basic understanding, right, of what AIPAC is, and if not, we'll get more into it. Now, this one says, well, yeah, this was from last year. Let's do this one. Nah. Okay. Now, here we go. Let's do this. This says, let's go back. Wait a minute. No, that's not it. Is that it? Wait a minute. Got my articles mixed up. My bad. Let me see. Is this the article? Let's see. This is not. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Yeah. All right. Let's read this. Now, we're not gonna read the whole thing. We're gonna only read part of it. It says now, less frequently mentioned is the fact that JFK had decided to register AZC, that we talked about earlier, as a foreign organization. This American Zionist Council would later be rebranded as AIPAC, would have then lost their almost unlimited power. Especially, they would have essentially lost their options to turn Israel into a nuclear power, and this was their greatest aim. According to this documentary that I wasn't familiar with, this was the real reason that Kennedy had to go, be it or not with the collaboration of other parties, including the military-industrial complex and the CIA. Now, what that is referring to is the simple fact that Mr. Kennedy, both of them actually, wanted, well, there were two things. John Kennedy. Oh, you said the name? Let me see. Because I haven't checked it out. Oops, my bad. I haven't checked it out. But let's go back. It is, the documentary is called Israel and the Assassination of the Kennedys. This documentary is one of the few that links the assassination of JFK and RFK together as one in the same plot, because both wanted AZC/AIPAC be registered as a foreign agent. This would have Israel lose its option to become a nuclear power. The John and Robert Kennedy assassinations happened some 60 years ago, but they're extremely relevant today, now maybe even more than ever, not just for the US but for the whole world. All right, so here's what they are saying, or here are the dots that they're connecting. I'm not vouching for the veracity of these statements. I'm saying this is what people are saying, and I found it interesting. When AIPAC was becoming, now let's go back. AIPAC started basically covering up massacres, right? When Kennedy comes along, Israel is trying to get a nuclear bomb, and AIPAC is lobbying to do that in America. John F. Kennedy does not want AIPAC to does not want Israel, to get a nuclear bomb. Robert Kennedy, who is the Attorney General at the time, wants AIPAC to be registered as a foreign agent, which would then cut off some of the funding and their power to lobby the government. Now, mind you, this is when AIPAC was not as big, as powerful, and made as much money, right? Now, what they are saying, that in the midst of this, and in the midst of Kennedy being staunchly opposed, and even it stated publicly that Israel will not get a nuclear weapon because he felt it would destabilize the entire region, which he was right? People are saying, not many people, and people are saying, and this is what this documentary is saying, that's the real reason behind the assassinations of both Kennedys. I can't vouch for that. You see what I'm saying? I can't vouch for that. But I'm saying it's an angle to it that I never looked at before. Well, I looked at it before, but only recently. I'm saying it's because there are a lot of theories about the Kennedy assassination, but let's just put it this way. The Israeli government benefited from the removal of both Kennedys. And AIPAC's power is greater now than it would have been had Mr. Kennedy lived. I just brought that up because I just found it interesting when I saw it, and I was like, no, I hadn't seen too many people talk about that publicly, right? So that's why I brought that up. Now, and people want to, they can throw that into the realm of conspiracy theory, and maybe don't think there's any documentation for that. I'm just saying it's an interesting coincidence. Now, related to that, this is I don't know who that, but anyway, this article, this is from the Wilson Center. Kennedy, the Mona, and the Nuclear Proliferation Problem, 1961-1962. Says President John F. Kennedy worried that Israel's nuclear program was potentially serious proliferation risks and insisted that Israel permit periodic inspections to mitigate the danger, according to declassified documents published today by the National Security Archive. Nuclear Proliferation International History Project and the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies. Kennedy pressured the government of Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion to prevent a military nuclear program, particularly after stage-managed tours of the Dimona facility for U.S. government scientists in 1961 and 1962 raised suspicions within the U.S. intelligence agencies that Israel might be concealing its underlying nuclear aims. Kennedy's long-run objective, documents show, was to broaden and institutionalize inspections of Dimona by the International Atomic Energy Agency. On May 30th, 1961, Kennedy met Ben-Gurion in Manhattan to discuss bilateral relationship and Middle East issues. However, a central and indeed the first issue in their meeting was the Israeli nuclear program, about which President Kennedy was mostly concerned. According to a draft record of their discussion, which has never been cited and is published here for the first time, Ben-Gurion spoke rapidly and in a low voice, and some words were missed. He emphasized the so-called peaceful and economic development-oriented nature of the Israeli nuclear program. We now know that is a complete and total lie. But back to the article. Nevertheless, the note-taker, Assistant Secretary of State Philip Talbot, believed that he heard Ben-Gurion mention a pilot plant to process plutonium for atomic power, and also say that there's no intention to develop weapons capacity. Now, the key word in that statement is now, right? The final U.S. version of the MEMCON retained the sentence about plutonium, but did not include the language about pilot plant and weapons capacity. The differences between the two versions suggest the difficulty of preparing accurate records of meetings, but whatever Ben-Gurion actually said, President Kennedy was never wholly satisfied with the insistence that Dimona was strictly a peaceful project. Neither were U.S. intelligence professionals. A recently declassified national intelligence estimate on Israel prepared 7 months after the meeting and published here for the first time concludes that Israel may have decided to undertake a nuclear weapons program. At a minimum, we believe it has decided to develop the nuclear facilities in such a way as to put it in a position to develop nuclear weapons promptly should it decide to do so. This is the only NIE where discussion of Dimona has been declassified in its entirety. Stop right here. So, here's what we know. We see here from the declassified documents that Mr. Kennedy was staunchly against Israel developing a nuclear bomb. AIPAC and its predecessors were lobbying to allow such to take place. Eventually, Mr. Kennedy was not here, and then his brother was running for election. And then the other Mr. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Sr., was not here. And Israel went on to develop a bomb, and AIPAC went on to become the most powerful lobby in America. I'm just putting the information out because I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about these things. I'll let you all make your own conclusions. But I find it interesting that this really isn't put forth before the public. Y'all all right? Because I don't see it's quiet in the chat. Y'all went to sleep? I need to close out and call it a day. Anyway, it says the Atomic Energy Commission's recently declassified report on the first official U.S. visit to the Dimona complex in May '61. The Kennedy-Ben-Gurion meeting was possible only after that visit produced a positive result on the peaceful, non-military purposes of the reactor. According to the Atomic Energy Commission, Dimona was conceived as a means for gaining experience in directing, and construction. Oh man, I lost my place. I totally lost my place. Let's go back. Anyway, whatever. I lost my place. Point being is that commission believed incorrectly, as history would show, that was the Mona nuclear facility was strictly for peaceful purposes. Now, mind you, it had only been less than 20 years since the development of the nuclear bomb. So the people who had it were trying to keep everybody else from having it. They failed. Okay, yeah. Hey, cover that in a nutshell. So I just find it interesting that AIPAC came into existence in essence to help smooth over and cover up a massacre, and had a hand in Israel developing a nuclear bomb. This is an interesting history, and I find this fascinating myself. Now, what have they been doing lately that would interest Black people, especially Democrats? This was last year. AIPAC targets Black Democrats while the Congressional Black Caucus stays silent. AIPAC has given at least $3.6 million to the CBC's old guard since last year, while members of the quote unquote squad draw Israel lobby's ire. And this is, what's her name? Ilhan Omar and Jamal Bowman. Now, this was from last year. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bowman, they paid for him to be kicked out of Congress because of his opposition to the goings on in Palestine or in Gaza. It says the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the country's most influential pro-Israel lobbying group, is recruiting candidates to challenge progressive members of the Congressional Black Caucus in primaries next year. The CBC has been silent on the AIPAC bid to challenge at least 3 of its members who are part of the so-called squad, a loose group of progressive representatives. According to media reports and the Intercept's investigation, the only incumbents AIPAC has targeted so far in this election are CBC members. That means that the Israeli lobby has only targeted Black members of Congress at that time. Y'all tell me, have y'all heard anybody else point this out? Because I have, but I want to see, has anybody else talk about this? He said he lost. Yeah, Jamal Brown lost his seat. Thank you. Y'all let me know. So this is why we need to know about these types, because again, they had a hand in our good sister, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, losing her seat years ago. And these activities are still taking place, right? But nobody wants to discuss it. Anyway, the CBC silence on the electoral challenges reflects the divide amongst Democrats on Israel, with progressives increasingly willing to buck Capitol Hill orthodoxies and speak up for Palestinian rights and fundraising dynamics among caucus members. AIPAC has endorsed more than half of CBC members. The AIPAC-backed members of the caucus, some 31 lawmakers, have received a previously unreported total of at least $3.6 million from AIPAC since February 2022. So that would be over, a little bit of a year and a half, I guess, according to FEC Commission records. The silence has given rise to calls for the CBC to speak up for members under attack, especially given AIPAC's propensity for directing Republican money to challenge incumbent progressive Democratic primaries. AIPAC and its Republican donors are intentionally targeting progressive members of the Congressional Black Caucus with right-wing primary challenges, said Alexandra Rojas, the executive director of Justice Democrats, which backed all 5 CBC members from the squad. The CBC and every caucus in Congress has the opportunity now to demonstrate their power and stand up for all incumbents against AIPAC's role in funneling GOP money into Democratic primaries. This is wild. AIPAC is seeking to challenge CBC members Ilhan Omar and Jamal Bowman, who they have now successfully defeated. Because of their support for putting restrictions on U.S. aid to Israel, Jewish Insider, The Jewish Insider, is that a publication? Reported last month. According to 3 sources with knowledge of the recruiting process, who asked for anonymity to protect professional relationships, AIPAC asked Pittsburgh area Democrat Lindsey Powell to challenge Representative Summer Lee, the Democrat from Pennsylvania. Powell declined. Allegheny County Controller Corey O'Connor also declined an AIPAC invitation to challenge Lee. Okay. Bhavini Patel, a council member of the city of Edgewood, Pennsylvania, is reportedly planning to run against Lee. Jewish Insider reported it has unable to confirm if AIPAC had met with Patel. Patel did not respond for comment. While AIPAC declined to respond to specific questions about its involvement in the challenge against CBC members, the pro-Israel lobby defended its record for supporting Black candidates for Congress. AIPAC proudly endorsed more than half of the Black caucus last cycle, and the United Democracy Project, an AIPAC-backed super PAC, helped ensure Hold up. Let me read this part slowly. They help ensure pro-Israel African American Democrats in Ohio, North Carolina, and Maryland won elections. An AIPAC spokesperson said in a statement to The Intercept. Let's stop right here. So, AIPAC ensures that Black politicians who are more loyal to Israel than Black people get elected for Congress. But this is according to AIPAC. Like, literally, that's what he said. And $3.6 million isn't even really a lot of money, but it's enough to beat Cori Bush and what's the other gentleman? And I forgot, I didn't load up that video talking about this, because the Griot did a video that wasn't that long. I mean, I just find this interesting, and I mean, again, have y'all seen other people talk about this? Let me know. Like, this is an organization that is rooted in some shady dealings, right? Like, founded to cover up a massacre in essence, and they're targeting Black politicians. So, I mean, you know, we're going to be involved in the political process. It's not just about voting. You gotta know these things, right? So when your local politician comes up to you glad handing like they do around here, and I'm sure they do it in other places, just ask them, man, how much AIPAC money are you taking? Respectfully. And do you know their history of covering up massacres of Palestinian villagers in the 50s? I mean, if you're going to take people's money, you should at least know a little bit of history. So what I'm going to do real quick, I have 2 videos related to AIPAC. I'm going to play the first one, and then we'll come back and discuss it. So y'all know how we do. Pause the music, load the clip.
Why does the U.S. support Israel so staunchly? Shared values? A military outpost in the Middle East? Or an unending apology for Holocaust? Any of them or all of them would be the answer. Yet, it is noteworthy that the U.S. politicians, whether today or in the past, whether they be Republican or Democrat, vehemently pledge support to any Israeli action. This support goes much beyond alliance, but becomes the embracement of Israel's sick-minded Zionism.
You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist.
And we're going to make Israel great again, and we're going to make America great again. We're going to make them both great again, greater than ever before.
As long as I'm a United States Senator, I will do everything in my power to ensure broad and bipartisan support for Israel's security.
Less than a month left for the U.S. elections, the same question keeps minds occupied. Is the U.S. politics strangled by pro-Israeli lobbies? Looking at the consequences of their activities, such as unseating certain politicians or ensuring further monetary aid from the government, the answer seems to be yes.
Good morning, AIPAC.
AIPAC, American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, which is the biggest pro-Israeli group but ironically ineligible to make any donations, has already officially spent more than $100 million in the electoral races via guiding individuals or registered lobby groups. Existing in the U.S. for almost half-century, AIPAC basically pushes members of Congress, presidents, and other elected officials to pass policies that unconditionally support Israel. Up to today, the staunchest supporters of Israel within U.S. politics have received enormous donations from AIPAC, including the U.S. President Joe Biden, the now bribery-convicted Robert Menendez, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, Ted Cruz, and so on. But AIPAC is not only this. Let's give an ear to American-Palestinian journalist and author Ramzi Baroud, who believes AIPAC is more than a simple lobby and has bypassed U.S. policy-making mechanisms entirely.
What is happening between Israel and the United States is not exactly lobbying in that sense. In fact, the largest, supposedly the most powerful lobby groups of them all, AIPAC, is not even registered as a foreign lobby group, as if you are part of the domestic politics of America. And this is, I think, is the greatest achievement of the so-called Israel lobby. Is not, number one, their ability to behave in a way that made Israel a domestic issue in American politics.
Furthermore, Baroud argues that most of American policymakers themselves were acting like a pro-Israel lobbyist.
The neoconservatives, which is the powerful ruling elite that had a great sway of power over American foreign policy during the George Bush administration, they are essentially all pro-Israel lobbyists. Many of them had dual citizenships. Many of them worked for Israeli organizations, Israeli companies, played the roles of advisors within the Israeli government, close to Benjamin Netanyahu and others. And they were yet the ones presented to the American public through American media, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and all the rest. They presented themselves as, good old Americans.
Obviously, the most striking example was Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who declared his support for Israel as a Jew.
I come before you not only as the United States Secretary of State, but also as a Jew.
Now, I find that interesting that the United States Secretary of State, right? Oh, my bad. Where's my music? That the United States Secretary of State, who was the person in charge of dealing with foreign affairs and foreign governments, as he says, this is what he said, right? That was the end of the clip. That he comes before the Israeli people. not as an American, but as a Jew, which, as far as I know, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, all Jews have a right of return to the land of Israel. So in essence, he's coming to them. A United States official, government official, is coming to a foreign government as a citizen of that foreign government. How is this not a contradiction? How is this is a person that has dual citizenship? What they say, you can't serve two masters. But some type of way, this man who's in charge of the United States relationships with the governments of the world is talking to one of those governments as, in essence, a member of that nation, and not a member, not as a representative of the interest of the United States of America, but in essence, the interest of Israel. How was that not a contradiction? So here's the thing. You can't necessarily, I mean, you can sort of vote out Mr. Blinken, but nobody voted in Mr. Blinken. So, like when Mr. Trump talked about draining the swamp, this has to be part of the swamp. People who are representing other countries while being in the United States government, if that's not the swamp, what's the swamp? And is he going to make sure that all the dual citizenship having people are not part of the government? And because if he's not, then what's the point? Like, think about it, right? That would be like me being an ambassador. Let's say I was an ambassador, the ambassador to the Sahel region. And I came and said, I don't come as the representative of the United States of America, but I come as a son of Africa. How long y'all think I would have that job? You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously. Like, dude, is this a normal thing? Does this happen all the time? Like, do other secretaries of state, have they gone to, like, has the Irish Secretary of State, has he gone to Ireland and said that I'm here to represent the interests of Ireland, even though I'm the Secretary of State? Now, I'm just asking, God, I don't know. Like, sounds kind of weird. You know? And so people who are wondering why the United States does certain things, foreign policy wise, we say President shorter than White House presidency. I mean, yeah. So I mean, we wonder why the United States does certain things policy wise. Well, at least somebody is serving two masters openly, like stating it. Like, this is not me, not me putting words in the man's mouth. The man, we saw the video. I think that people should maybe try to figure this one out. So while he's over there representing Israel's interests, and you know the shenanigans in Gaza and everywhere else is going on, and we're trying to, well, we're not trying to figure it out, but some people are trying to figure out why the U.S. won't just stop sending the weapons. Well, because the person that could at least relay that message, it's working for the other team. According to him, not according to me. I've been on here longer than I wanted to. Oh, yeah, this was an article from the LA Progressive. It says, from Dallas to Gaza, how JFK's assassination was good for Zionist Israel. This is not me. This is an LA Progressive from someone named Rick Sterling, December 15, 2023. Says Kennedy wanted to steer the Jewish Zionists away from these are their words. This is kind of inflammatory, but away from the racist, militaristic, and ultra-nationalist impulses which led to where we are today. Alrighty. Now it says President John F. Kennedy was assassinated 60 years ago. If he had lived and won a second term, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict would have evolved differently. Possibly the path towards Israeli apartheid and genocide in Gaza could have been avoided. Well, I guess we know where they stand. Already. Anyway, says in a short time in office, Kennedy changed U.S. foreign policy in significant ways, as documented in the book JFK and the Unspeakable, Why He Died and Why It Still Matters. JFK resisted the CIA and the military-industrial complex and its policies he set regarding the quote-unquote third world and the Soviet Union. The Vietnam War, the assassination of Indonesia's President Sukarno, and continued hostility to Cuba and the Soviet Union would not have happened had Kennedy lived and won a second term. There's almost no doubt that if Kennedy lived, he would have won a second term. Like, there's almost no doubt. Less well known, however, Kennedy's policies also challenged and opposed the military and political ambitions of Zionist Israel. At the time, Israel had only existed for 13 years. It was still evolving and the course was not totally set. There was significant international resolve to find a compromise solution regarding Palestinian refugees from the 1948 Nakba. When Israel attacked Egypt and seized the Sinai Peninsula in 1956, the Eisenhower administration demanded Israel withdraw from the captured territory. They complied. At this time in the early 1960s, prominent Jewish voices criticized the racism and discrimination of the Israeli government. Israelis like Martin Buber assailed Ben-Gurion and noted that, quote, at the inception of the state, complete equality with the Jewish citizens was promised to the Arab population. Now, I'm going to stop right here. I don't know if anybody believed that. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't say it, but I'm saying I don't know if anybody believed that. If this person who's saying this believed it, good for him. But history has shown us that there was no intention of making that true. It says many influential Israelis realize that long-term security and well-being depended on finding a just can't enunciate right now, settlement with the indigenous Palestinian population. Stop right here. If the Palestinian population are indigenous, that nullifies the claims of the Israeli people. So I just find it interesting that they wrote that way. I don't know if they wrote that intentionally that way or what. Anyway, in the United States, the Jewish community was divided and many were anti-Zionists. I find that interesting. I don't know if that's true or not, but I find it interesting. The American Council for Judaism was influential and anti-nationalist. The racist and militaristic character of Israel had not yet been set in stone, nor was American Jewish support for Israel. When Menachem Begin came to the United States in 1948, he was denounced by prominent Jewish leaders, including Albert Einstein. Now, I had heard about Einstein. They said Begin who later became Israeli prime minister, was a terrorist who preached an admixture of ultra-nationalism, religious mysticism, and racial superiority. Many American Jews had mixed feelings and did not identify with Israel. Others supported Israel on the basis of there being peace with Palestinians. Mr. Kennedy was not biased in Israel's favor, according to this. It says the Kennedy administration saw good relations with both Israel and the Arab nations. Kennedy aimed to extend U.S. influence throughout the Middle East, including with nations that were friendly with the Soviet Union and at odds with NATO and its partners. Kennedy personally supported Arab and wait, what? All right, let me read this. Kennedy personally supported Arab and African nationalism. Wait, hold on. Wait. I need y'all to remind me of something. Was Kennedy the president? Y'all, because the election was in 1960, so he would have been president in 1961. Okay. Because I was getting ready to say, wasn't Kennedy the president when Patrice Lumumba was assassinated? But it is possible that he was not yet president. Can somebody, brother, you got ripped off? Can you confirm who was president when our dear brother Lumumba was assassinated? Anyway, so I don't know about that one, but let's go on. It says, as a senator in 1957, he criticized the Eisenhower administration for supporting and sending weapons to France in their war with the Algerian independence movement. In a 9,000-word presentation to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he criticized Western imperialism and called for the U.S. to support Algerian independence. Algerian President Ben Bella, who France had tried to assassinate and considered far too radical by many in NATO, was given a huge and impressive welcome to the White House. Okay, I mean, technically that's African nation, but y'all know what I'm saying. Kennedy changed the previous frosty relationships with the United Arab Republic, Egypt, and Syria, led by Gamal Abdel Nasser. For the first time, the U.S. approved loans to them. Kennedy wrote respectful letters to the Arab presidents before he welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Ben Gurion to Washington. The Arab leaders conceded differences and responded with appreciation. Those who claimed there was no difference with Kennedy ignored the fact that Egypt's Nasser and Algeria's Ben Bella and other national leaders saw a big difference. In 1960, when Kennedy was campaigning for president, he spoke at the Zionists of America convention. He made complimentary remarks about Israel, but also expressed the need for friendship with all peoples of the Middle East. He said U.S. should act promptly and decisively against any nation in the Middle East which attacks its neighbors. And the Middle East needs water, not war, tractors, not tanks, bread, not bombs. Also, Kennedy wanted the Zionist lobby to follow the rules. The second difference in Kennedy's policy is regarding Zionist lobbying on behalf of Israel. Under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, organizations that promote or lobby on behalf of foreign governments are required to register and account for their finances and activities. Under Attorney General Robert Kennedy, the Department of Justice instructed the American Zionist Council to register as agents of a foreign country. AZC is the parent organization of AIPAC. As documented in detail here, on November 21st, 1962, the Assistant Attorney General wrote to them, "The receipt of such funds from the American sections of the Jewish Agency for Israel constitutes the American Zionist Council is an agent of a foreign principal. The council registration is requested." The emergence of Israeli political influence was also scrutinized in the Senate. Under Senator William Fulbright, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee held hearings in May and August of 1963. They revealed that the tax-free donations to United Jewish Appeal, supposedly for humanitarian relief in Israel, were being channeled back to the U.S. for lobbying purposes on Israel's behalf. On October 11th, the DOJ demanded the AZC register again and expected a response within 72 hours. October 7th, a DOJ memorandum reports that attorneys for AZC pleaded for not being required to register as foreign agents. They offered to provide the required financial disclosures, but that registering as a foreign agent would be so publicized by the American Council on Judaism that it would eventually destroy the Zionist movement. As indicated in this discussion, political Zionism was not yet dominant in the American Jewish community and was actively opposed by the American Council of Judaism. And let's go to the other part that we'll find interesting. It says Kennedy, let's go back. Kennedy tried to stop the Israel nuclear weapons program. The fourth and biggest contention between Kennedy and Israeli leadership was regarding their development of nuclear weapons. The issue was kept so secret that crucial documents and letters have only been released in recent years. President Kennedy was a strong advocate for stopping nuclear proliferation. After the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, he realized how easy it would be to intentionally or accidentally trigger a catastrophic nuclear war. If nuclear weapons were allowed to be spread to more countries, the risk of global catastrophe would be greater. It was also predicted that if Israel acquired nuclear weapons capability, they will become more aggressive and less likely to compromise agreement regarding Palestinian refugees. All right. When intelligence indicated that Israel might be trying to develop a nuclear weapon at Dimona in 1962, Kennedy was determined to find out if it was true and if so to stop it. This caused an intense diplomatic confrontation between Kennedy and David Ben-Gurion. The proof of this recently revealed in an exchange of letters. They were all labeled top secret and eyes only. So, we have seen from multiple sources that Mr. Kennedy was staunchly opposed to the Israel lobby, to Israel getting nuclear weapons, and to Israel's treatment of the Palestinians, even at that time, where apparently multiple massacres had occurred over the years. And eventually, all of this came to naught because Mr. Kennedy would be assassinated a month after these letters in 1963. This is history that I think needs to be discussed more often. And yeah, brother, you got ripped off. I'm way past time. I didn't even realize. So, real quick, I'm gonna look at this article. I'm gonna just skim through it, and I'm gonna play one more video, and I'm gonna get out of here because I'm way past time. It says, how does AIPAC shape Washington? We track every dollar. This is from The Intercept, and this is from October 24th. So if you would like to find the whole article, because I'm not gonna go through the whole article, I'm just gonna see. Let me see. I really feel like saving this for another night, but let's just look at it. It says, for decades, AIPAC had been an influential president of Capitol Hill, working behind the scenes, lobbying politicians and staffers in support of Israel. But ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, AIPAC made the decision that would fundamentally alter its purpose and contours of American politics. After 60 years of issue-backed lobbying, AIPAC for the first time opted to spend directly on campaigns, flushed with millions of dollars from loyal donors, among them Republican billionaires and mega donors to former President Trump. AIPAC embraced a new strategy. It would use its vast funds to oust progressive members of Congress who had criticized the human rights abuses by Israel and the country's receipt of billions in military funding. The big picture. When it rolled out its new strategy, 2022 election cycle, AIPAC found immediate success. The lobbying group and another pro-Israel group, Democratic Majority for Israel, defeated Representatives Andy Levin. Wouldn't. I'm assuming that someone named Andy Levin themselves would be Jewish. So they defeated a Jewish representative, and Marie Newman, a Democrat from Illinois, who were outspoken in their criticism of unconditional U.S. military funding for Israel. The campaign to defeat Levin marked a significant push from AIPAC to repress criticism of Israel, even from Jewish members of Congress. So, hey, man, anybody can get it. Ahead of the 2024 cycle and amid growing public outrage on Gaza, AIPAC made a bold statement. Through its United Democracy Project arm and AIPAC, it would spend $100 million on elections, about 1/6 of what outside groups spent on the 2020 presidential election. So they're going to spend 1/6 of what people spend on the presidential election on congressional races. There are a few congressional races that AIPAC set out this year. Oh, no, excuse me. There are few of the 469 seats up for re-election. AIPAC has spent money on more than 80%, 389 races in total. AIPAC has sought influence over 363 seats in the House and 26 in the Senate. Of the 389 candidates AIPAC funded, 57 did not face a primary. Of the primary elections that did take place, 88 had no opponent. Okay. You know what? I'm just be honest. I'm gonna have to do a separate video for this. Or if y'all want, it can be part of another live stream later on. But this has to be addressed separately. They've literally just decided that they're just going to buy up Congress. And nobody's talking about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play one last video that talks about AIPAC and their power. And then I'm going to close out at 10:30. So this is a lot. I'm tired. And this needs to be fully addressed so people can be paying attention. So what I'm probably going to end up doing, I'm going to do a separate radical report on AIPAC. And it'll probably be between 20 and 30 minutes. And it'll come out before the election. And so it'll come out later this week. I'll do that. Because, we seem to have lost some people along the way. And brother RBG says this is what cutting a nation down to size looks like. Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're going to do. Pause the music. We're going to check out this video. And then we're going to have our closing remarks.
Accused of committing genocide in Gaza thanks to US weapons, political support and funding. A lot of people are asking, just why is the US so staunchly pro-Israel? Well, the answer isn't all that simple, but a big part of the conversation is a particular lobby group called the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC. Its mission: to push pro-Israel policies in the US and get politicians to vote for them. It's donated to most of the current members of the US Congress, funding 342 out of all 535. Records show that it's the biggest spending campaign group when it comes to representing a foreign interest in domestic US politics, and AIPAC is spending big on getting its favoured candidates elected. Take this tweet about the Democratic congressional primary in Illinois. AIPAC is taking credit for the defeat of candidate Keena Collins. Collins is a community organizer and lifelong anti-gun violence activist. She also called Israel's war on Gaza genocide. AIPAC spent hundreds of thousands of dollars funding attack ads to kill her campaign, which she lost. So how did AIPAC become the most prominent foreign affairs lobby group in the US? It fundraises through glittering annual galas where both Democrats and Republicans scramble to secure speaking spots.
The U.S.-Israel relationship is special and strong.
After all, AIPAC prides itself on being non-partisan. AIPAC boasts a long list of rich backers who it traditionally uses to funnel money to its preferred candidates and also to donate to pro-Israel Washington think tanks to influence Middle East policy. Remember when former US President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as the Israeli capital and moved the embassy there? Or when he tore up the Iran nuclear deal? Yes, AIPAC. All the $300 billion in mostly military aid the US has sent Israel since its founding, also AIPAC. Its army of lobbyists has unfettered access to officials in Congress. This is where it has traditionally focused its energy and money. You might have seen video of pro-Palestinian activists talking to AIPAC lobbyists.
While you're having your lunch, just think about the children in Gaza who are starving.
AIPAC also bankrolls politicians' trips to Israel.
Hello from Israel!
Here are 24 House Democrats last year taking in the sights. Archaeological ruins, the old city, supposed Hezbollah smuggling tunnel.
It's pretty surreal to actually go down there.
Well, some American voters might think it also surreal that AIPAC's most recent winning strategy pits Democrat against Democrat. It spent $50 million on the 2022 midterms, including more than $17 million in direct donations, and it spent double on Democrats than on Republicans.
Thank you, AIPAC.
It successfully helped defeat 13 candidates who AIPAC claims would have undermined the US-Israel relationship. Don't take my word for it. It's all written here in AIPAC's Political Achievements fact sheet. It's expected to spend $100 million on this year's election, but it isn't acting alone. It set up a big money affiliate called the United Democracy Project, which also spent money to defeat Keena Collins in Illinois and is now funding attack ads against members of the Squad, the young progressive group of Democrats, which includes the sole Palestinian-American member of Congress, Rashida Tlaib. In November, 22 of her fellow Democrats joined Republicans in voting to censure Tlaib because she used the pro-Palestinian phrase, from the river to the sea. At least 18 of those Democrats received donations from AIPAC. As the Israel lobby slogan goes, being pro-Israel is good policy and good politics.
I just say this to those, because as we see, I mean, we've seen that, throughout the night that a lot of Black politicians have been targeted by AIPAC recently, including Donna Edwards of Maryland. I didn't know that AIPAC got her, right? I believe she represents part of PG County and part of Montgomery County, or she did. I didn't know that's what happened to her. I'm gonna just say this, those people who aren't your politician, hasn't been affected yet, or you think they haven't been affected because they weren't ousted out by AIPAC. Your politician, your local politician is a servant of AIPAC just by him or her, them, whatever, still being in office. Because we see people who stand up to them get bought out of office, right? I mean, and I just put it like this: if you're gonna talk about elections in America, you're not gonna talk about AIPAC's influence over politicians. You ain't talking about nothing. Like, seriously. Like, I know massive amounts of money are going to both Trump and Harris. Harris's connections speak for itself through her husband. Trump's connections speak for themselves through his children. Regardless of what anybody wants to say, this is the swamp that needs to be drained. It's completely unreasonable for a foreign power to have this much influence over the American government, in my humble opinion. So I'm going to close it out right there. With that, brothers and sisters, I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for hanging in there longer than normal. Again, I'm your host, DC Radical 1. You can follow me on Instagram at DC.Radical1, on Twitter at DC Radical_ONE. The OTW2, which is a Black-owned free speech platform, is at DC Radical 1. You can donate via Cash App at $ DC Radical 1. And you can email me at dc.radical_1@protonmail.com. If I am able to, I will come back on later in the week, because this discussion has to continue, or needs to continue. I feel like I left a lot of meat on the bone. Like I said, I think I'll do a AIPAC radical report, and we'll take it from there. We'll see how it goes from there. So that, brothers and sisters, I say, BB for ODA and straight Black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $ DC Radical 1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight Black pride.